All right, we're going to take a look at functions. Now, without functions, we would be repeating ourselves with line after line of redundant code. So, whenever you set out to create a function, you should have in mind a particular task you want that to perform. What do you want it to do? What do you want that function to accomplish? So, in our code, we have our function declarations, and basically these are going to tell the compiler what to expect from our functions. So these just have to be outside the body of func main. So our first function here, func do something, just starts off like any function with a func keyword, which expects the function name right afterwards. And then if we had any parameters, the parameters would be inside this parenthesis here. If we had any return values, it would be right after that first parenthesis. So this one's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And of course, our function body is right there. And let's go ahead and run this real quick. All right, so we run our function here on line 18. Remember that we always start our code under at func main. So our code starts executing here, and the function is going to take control of the execution flow. We're on line 18. The function's invoked, and then it's going to take us up here. We're going to run this block of code. When that's done, it's going to take us on down to line 19. So basically, do something was invoked. We ran this block of code. It printed off our function did something. There it is. And then it went down to line 19. Now let's take a look at our other function here. And this one's going to calculate the area of a rectangle. So our func keyword, our function name, and of course our function's parameters. And we have one function parameter for length and one for width. And these are both type float 64. So as we can see here, right after that, we have our return values. You can see this one before didn't have any return values, and this one's going to return a float 64. So right off the bat, when we get into our block of code here, we are taking our area, which is our return value, and we're assigning to it the result of this expression here, which is just the length times width. And then we're going to go ahead and return that value, and that's going to let it know, hey, our function is finished. So as you can see here, we have a return here, but not here. Since this one doesn't have any return values, the return keyword is not necessary. So let's take a look at our code and on how it ran. Like we said, we start off at func main, we ran do something, and then we get down to line 19. We have our variable a, and we're going to assign to it the return value from running this function. And when we're running this function, we are passing in the arguments 10 and 15. Now, if you're curious what the difference between a parameter and an argument is, and your function declaration, these are your parameters are your expected values. The actual things we are passing in are the arguments. So, the first argument we're passing in is for our length, and the second argument we're passing in is for our width. So these get passed in, the function is invoked, we're running this block of code, length, which was 10, width, which was 15, 10 times 15 is 150, assign that to area, and then we return that value. So we return the value 150, it gets assigned to the variable a. And finally, we print our variable a. So that came out 150. So a couple things to be wary of here is, for instance, this curly brace has to be on the same line. If I move it down to here, it's not going to work. Go actually has automatic semicolon insertion. You can't see the semicolons, but if we save that and then run it, it's going to say unexpected semicolon or new line before that bracket. So Let's put that back up. And it runs again. Another thing to be conscientious of is it's expecting these types. So if I try to pass in a string, oops, that's going to throw an error. You cannot use string 15, type string, as type float64 in argument to our function. Let's change that back. And another thing to know about is that the number of parameters does matter. So let's run that. And there's too many arguments. As you can see here, it's expecting, it's expecting 2 arguments, and we try to pass it 3. Same thing if we try to pass it 1. It's also going to throw an error. Not enough arguments. So change that back. And we're good to go. Oh, changed it to 150, didn't I? Anyway, that's just a real general overview of what a function is. Looking at the the function declaration, this section up here is your function signature. It can tell you a lot about a function, what it's expecting, what it's expecting to return. But I hope that was useful, and I'll see you in the next one.